Hi there, welcome to Breaking News in the Noah Presgrove Case. Today I'm going to share with you some very interesting text from Alicia Lee which will blow your mind and turns the tables upside down for Kaden Pressy and his timeline from what he witnessed at the party, because what Kaden has told us in public interviews about what he saw and what he didn't does not match up what Alicia talks about. It comes across as if Kaden knows more and saw a lot more than what he's told us as for the interviews. So what is going on there? Be sure to stick around for the full understanding, and I will do some comparisons and contrast amongst analysis too. Welcome to anyone that's watching the live premiere. Share your thoughts, opinions, live reactions, where the live chat box is on the right hand side of the screen. And after watching the video, if you've got any additional thoughts, if you have any questions, be sure to drop a comment down below under the video. It will help with spreading awareness. And you'll also find a pinned message by me at the top, which will have a PayPal link if you want to support this channel. If you want to catch up on the latest coverage, and if you have missed out on any previous videos, you will locate that all the top right corner where the eye symbol is. There will be a playlist available. The order of how we'll do things today is I'm going to share with you those never seen before text first of all, with what Alicia has said at some point previously, make sense of it, and then we'll add on with some photos and maybe a map analysis if necessary. But don't go anywhere, it's important to stick around. As you see on screen, there is Elisha Lee's name, also known as Elisha Pressy. I always refer to them as Alicia Lee, Kaden Pressy's mom, Facebook Messenger DM, something about and drove home to Duncan. Then Alicia says when Georgia, Kaden's cousin, left, he went back inside and went to sleep. I asked if Kaden saw Noah, and he said the last time he saw Noah, he was mad at a girl and was going to take a shower. Now, the order of that is very confusing considering what we've heard many other times elsewhere online. And, you know, the way I've arranged my map analysis too, it does not match up with what Alicia says here in that order. As well, Alicia says Kaden Pressy saw the girls, more than one, with Noah's arms around their necks, walking Noah to the shower. He said he thought Noah was super drunk, so he could have been semi-conscious. Now, if that's the case, it would make sense as to why the girls were helping him and getting into the bathroom which we have an example here, just an example. Kaden Pressy, from his point of view, which this in particular was Sunday night at around 10:40, I think, or 10:50. The girl in the white shirt over there is and was Georgia. And the reference to Georgia leaving here by Alicia will be probably leaving the party, which was around 2 in the morning or so, from what I think Breely's sisters have said online. I think that's how they're related. Of course, we've had some run-ins with the timings of, you know, who showed up where and at what time exactly. I've done videos of that previously, but there's just a lot to process here, and we're going to break it down bit by bit. I'm going to be giving you my raw reaction as well. So, when Georgia left, Kaden went back inside, but what was Kaden doing before that? What was Kaden doing outside of the party house? Was he just standing next to Georgia to make sure that she was okay, or what? Because at least from Alicia's point of view, an earlier time after 12:48 in the morning, 00:48 Monday morning, it was like at 1:40 or so when Alicia was messaging Kaden and saying, why are you not with Georgia? I told you to stick with her whilst at the party so nobody gets in the way, so nobody takes photos of her. Kaden did not follow through with that. And from the marker, it looked maybe like Kaden was inside of the house, or more so near the patio outside area, the front porchway. It was hard to tell because the marker was kind of like half on the house area and then outside. So I don't know if Kaden, or how long Kaden would have been outside for. I do know, though, at like 1:05 in the morning, Noah, Brylan, you had Kaden, who was recording it, of Brylan slapping Noah. You had Isaac, you had Avery outside at 1:05 in the morning. That's like, just round it down, round it up, like an hour difference, an hour on to when Georgia had left. So at 1:05, Kaden being outside, but where was Georgia at that point? And then when it did get too close to 2 in the morning, was Kaden still outside for that hour? Or did he go in the house and then out? Did he rest in between or not? Like how he's resting on one of the chairs, recliners, whatever you want to call it. You know, as for reference, Noah's there in between the people. The shirtless one with the black shorts, the whitish cap. Breely is on the left, back facing us with the ponytail. Further to the right, near to the Christmas tree, is Jack Newton, but we don't really see much of him onwards. And then in the background, maybe Avery or Logan Carter, and then Jasmine on the left. But I'm just working with what I've got here. It's just trying to understand bit by bit. So if anyone's got interpretations, you can always do that, because there's some things that stand out more, of course, but I want to look at the really fine details in regard to Georgia leaving and then Kaden returning back to the house, because other people may have interpreted that or added their own little stories and rumours that Kaden had driven or escorted Georgia down to the highway to the meeting point of where Melissa and Alicia were at. But at least from how Kaden has worded things, that never happened. And I guess with what Alicia has said, that hasn't been acknowledged. But how it's worded here, that after Georgia had left, that's when Kaden went back inside. So for as long as Georgia was doing whatever, does that mean Kaden was just outside? And at least 1:05 in the morning, it's documented Kaden was outside. But what about onwards for about an hour or so? Did Kaden move about much? What did he really do? Can that be filled in with blanks? No harm in asking, right? The mention of going back inside to sleep. Well, to sleep, from what Kaden says, was 2 in the morning. From what people maybe online have interpreted as, when they may have interpreted it incorrectly or they've added their own story, that after Kaden supposedly escorted Georgia to the highway and then making it back to the house, then he went off to sleep. So that 2 in the morning timestamp. But that 2 in the morning timestamp is supposedly roughly the time of when Breely's sisters came on down to pick up Georgia and Breely and take the other car away as well of Breely's, so nothing was left behind. But that was all at 2 in the morning. So for Kaden Pressy to go anywhere before that wouldn't tie in line with the whole escorting thing down to the highway. So we probably can debunk that possibly. But I don't know if Kaden would have been looking out for Georgia towards the end, as in, right, I'll stay by you. It's just because it doesn't quite tie in line with the way Alicia was in that conversation at, what was it, like 1:40 or so, saying, hey, Kaden, you know, you're not with Georgia, what's going on there? And to be honest, depending how we interpret it on screen, we probably should get that screenshot up right now to compare with the timings. Well, as you see on screen, this was the text conversation at the time of the party back then on the day of Monday before Noah's death with Kaden Pressy. I believe Alicia's point of view, which is on the right side, highlighted in the blue box, and then greyed out would be Kaden Pressy. This specific screenshot of the conversation relevant to what I was getting at just before, where Kaden says, yes, Georgia is fixing to go to the toilet to pee and then leave. Leave as in what? Leave the party, like how Alicia says here about when Georgia had left. But from what's been talked about online and from what Breely's sisters have mentioned, around 2 in the morning is when Georgia and Breely left the party. Yet, Kaden words it at 12:58 a.m. Round it up if you want to 1 in the morning. 1 a.m. Kaden Pressy says Georgia is going to the bathroom and then she's going to leave the party. If Georgia is going to leave at 1 in the morning, then why did the people online, like Breeley's sisters, say, oh, well, they all left at around 2 in the morning? So what happened in that 1 hour time difference? What happened? What caused the delay? Did Georgia get distracted, sidetracked, was going to leave at 1 in the morning, but then got distracted by hanging out, talking with people, having fun or something, maybe? It's just a big time difference. Oh yeah, Georgia's going to leave at 1 in the morning. 1 hour later, then decides to leave. Bit odd, right? Need a bit more clarity there. But at the time of when Kaden had announced what was happening, Alicia said, follow Georgia to the bathroom, please. Did Kaden Pressy follow through with that? Maybe, maybe not. After, round it up, 1 in the morning, 42 minutes later, because there was no response back from Kaden, Alicia gets concerned. And I don't know if you can see it on screen. No clue if this is Life 360, if this is some kind of tracking service. It must be. It gives Georgia's name there, also known as JB. That means Georgia. Don't know about the last name, but that doesn't matter too much. Georgia, the marker, appears to be inside of the party house, as you can see. JB inside of the party house. What room exactly? Who knows? Could be the kitchen area around there. Kaden Pressy is the one located just down there, that smaller little circular marker. But it's like half on the building and then half on the outside. So at 1:42 a.m. is when this was marked. At 1:42, Georgia's inside of the house, away from Kaden. Kaden's supposed to be looking after Georgia and being by her side, and yet he's not. Here at 1:42. At 1:05 in the morning, bringing it back to 12:58 when Kaden says, oh yeah, Georgia's is going to go to the bathroom and then leave the party. At this point, this moment, which is at 1:05, probably when Georgia has already gone back inside of the house to go to the bathroom, that Kaden Pressy remains outside, because what we've got to acknowledge is before 12:58, you had 12:48, which we've already seen before. 12:48 is when Georgia was outside, somewhere in the patio area, where the concrete is, sat down, head in her knees, bent over, leaning forwards after vomiting from having too much alcohol. 12:48 a.m. Kaden Pressy is outside on the front, such as round here, as you see on screen as an example, at 12:48. At 1:05, Kaden Pressy records this video between Brylan slapping Noah. So the difference between 12:48 to 1:05, Kaden Pressy was probably outside in between that time frame. But in between that time frame, Georgia likely went back inside the house to go to the bathroom. Kaden Pressy remained outside when Kaden was ordered by Alicia to follow her into the house. Granted, you could put the argument across and say, well, maybe in between 12:48 to 1:05, Kaden may have followed Georgia into the house to the bathroom. And then once that was done, Kaden went back outside to the front patio area to document and record this with Noah and Brylan. That's quite possible. But where was Georgia at 1:05 in the morning? Was she still in the house and Kaden was away from her, going against Alicia's wishes and request? So that when looking at this, after 1:05, roughly 42 minutes later, that's why you've got the markers as they are. Georgia's in the house and Kaden Pressy could well be outside. Nothing odd about being outside for about an hour. You know, if it's warm, you need to get some air, cool off, hang out outside, there's some action, some talking, whatever. I get people can party inside and out, and conversations can continue inside and out of buildings and whatnot. It's just understanding the movements and the patterns. Obviously, Alicia didn't hear much from Kaden after 12:58 onwards. So there's that. And at 1:45, around about, she says, Alicia, I'm going to call Melissa, which is George's mom. And that call log, what we have seen, is at, was it like 150 or something, 140 something onwards. So it ties in line there. So I'm just working that out as we go along. As for going back to sleep, that would, well, not going back, going to sleep for the first time, 2 a.m. But the next bit, what we need to focus on is Kaden Pressy making the reference to the last time he saw Noah, he was mad at a girl and was going to take a shower. Interesting. So we're saying that the argument with a girl and Noah, who was that with? Was it Avery? That's how it's interpreted as from what's been said online all this time, because Noah called Avery a fat beep and so on. Was that driven through rejection because Noah didn't get what he wanted? Because this whole supposed argument with a girl was because of the bedroom debacle, Noah wanting to sleep in one of the girls' beds, and it didn't work out. But the reason why it's significant is because the bedroom debacle occurred later on. From what we've heard over and over again within the case, it's besides the timing of it, it's been consistent that the last event to occur with Noah at the party before walking away at 3:30 was the bedroom debacle, which basically consisted of Noah maybe trying Logan's room and then more so Avery's, and it not working out. I think supposedly Avery's reason for not allowing Noah into the bed was because, I don't know what you've been doing with anyone else, or maybe with Logan. I don't want to be a third wheel. I don't want to be used. I'm not like that, or I don't want to be like that. That's, I think, how it was said, whether that be by Kaden or maybe Justin. It was in one of the interviews, at least on YouTube, I'm sure. So the bedroom debacle, the arguments there with a girl with Noah, for Kaden Pressy to witness that, supposedly, the timing of that, then Kaden should have seen Noah walking away. Because after that argument with the girl, Noah did walk away from what's been said. Noah did supposedly get the shoes and then walk off. And in that moment of Noah just simply getting the shoes, the mismatched ones, getting one of Kaden's by accident or not, if Kaden was to witness the argument and then shortly afterwards Noah walking off, Kaden would have been likely to have witnessed that as well. Kaden would have witnessed Noah putting on one of Kaden's shoes, technically speaking. Unless there was another argument at an earlier time. This is what the issue is, right? But there was an argument with a girl between Noah, and that was then leading to going to take a shower. What? He said, no, he was mad at a girl and was going to take a shower. Why would he be mad at a girl and then taking a shower? See, the order of events is that the primary reason for Noah taking a shower was because of the side-by-side rollover. Granted, Kaden Pressy did say that Sunday night he overheard Noah inquiring about taking a shower. But obviously that didn't happen because pass a bit of time on to Monday morning, then the side-by-side rollover, which, well, the timestamp Kaden Pressy gave us was 2:40 in the morning, which is questionable. I will acknowledge that. After that point, the side-by-side rollover, needing a shower because he's dirty and maybe because he's slightly injured. So if we was to interpret it maybe from what Alicia is getting at, if the argument with the girl is because of the sleeping arrangements, wanting to be in Avery's bed, if that's what Alicia's referring to here, well, it's been interpreted as Noah wanted to go to bed and sleep in one of the girls' beds before actually having a shower, which doesn't, it kind of flips everything all over the place as in the order of how it was supposed to go. I mean, common sense, just common sense would be, you've done an activity, it's like me lifting weights. I lift weights, I get soaked, there's all sweat all over me, especially when it's hot. It feels all horrible. I need a wash, right? It's not like, right, I've done my weights, I'm a complete mess, I'm sweaty, now I'm going to hop in bed. Sorry, strawberry, it is what it is. Here's the natural raw scent of my body. It's not quite like that, is it? Common sense would be, before you snuggle up in bed, you know, to rest or relax, you want to be clean, you want to be fresh. Maybe there's some exceptions, but you know, you're going to jump into the shower or you're going to do something to try and clean yourself, freshen yourself up, so then you're nice and ready to go to bed. That's like how it was told in this case, wasn't it? But how it's worded here by Alicia, basing it off the argument being to do with the bedroom situation and Avery and nothing else, it comes across as if Kaden Pressy witnessed it as well, even though he may have not acknowledged it the same way in his own interview. Comes across as if Alicia knows more than Kaden, or Kaden knows more than what he's letting on to us, and Alicia has revealed it, but not publicly, because this is a DM. So what is really going on? Has something been hidden? Was it old news, this, and it was down to poor communication? But really, if this is older, in fairness, the older these comments are by Alicia or Kaden, the more important they are. Some would say, well, old comments post or old news, things have changed since. But when people base it off memory and recollections, well, the earlier on, the more likely you're to remember stuff. And then through trauma and time passing on, thoughts and feelings may be suppressed and put to the unconscious mind, and you may eventually forget. Details may change and become not as accurate. So what's ever said in the early days, there could be a bit more truth to that. So if this is old as well to some extent, then it might be more true than what's been said since. But comparing the date or timing of what Alicia says here compared to the date and time of when Kaden Pressy did the Partisan True Crime Part 1 interview of July 2024, that would be very interesting, wouldn't it? Because if this came after the interview, what does that say? If this came before the interview earlier on, does that mean that this is more true than what Kaden said publicly in the Partisan True Crime interview? Makes you wonder. I said I'm not discounting it completely amongst other arguments Noah may have had with girls, but it's just the timing of it. But, you know, Noah, last time seen, Noah mad at a girl. To be mad at a girl does not have to mean a full-on argument or even a one-sided argument, just that Noah was annoyed with someone. But to be mad at a girl, there must have been some kind of action or interaction to cause that disgust within someone. But was it before or after the side-by-side rollover? It's at least before the shower. And with it being a girl, which girl was it? Because when referring to the shower here, Kaden witnessing it, even though Kaden didn't actually acknowledge it in the Partisan True Crime interview, saw the girls with Noah's arms around their neck. So those girls, even though no names are mentioned from what we're aware of, it's supposedly Carter Combs and Jasmine Milan, which isn't a massive deal, as in, you know, we've kind of heard about it since. As example, Jasmine Milan there, Carter on the right, Jasmine in her light grey shirt, which was seen and worn and noted with a Snapchat post of 3:41 in the morning announcing that Noah is missing, and it just so happened that her hair, her strands were wet, her shirt was a little wet as well, wet patches, likely because Jasmine was wearing this inside of the bathroom, as you see here, close to the shower, which you see back there where the shower curtain is and the shampoo. Don't know what flavour or scent the shampoo is, but that doesn't matter too much. Located on the right, behind that door with the shower curtain, right? So Noah's inside of the shower stood up. Jasmine, Carter, I'm guessing, are outside of the tub shower and are just standing nearby, simply helping to hold Noah up. I mean, I think Brooke Bounce Carter made a comment about it on Facebook and said nothing dodgy or sexual happened, but Carter Combs herself did at least acknowledge that we did help keep him standing so he didn't fall over. And then one of Noah's buddies came on in, jumped on into the shower, and through that, it was laughter and it was funny. And whether that part was documented or before, there is supposedly at least a video of the shower. The importance of that video can highlight the timestamp, which is very much needed, so we know when it actually happened, whether it credits or discredits what Alicia has been saying here about when certain events happened, right? As well, the shower revealing the atmosphere, who the other person was that jumped into the shower if that was recorded, how Noah appeared visually, did he look hurt or not, did he have any visible injuries or not from the side-by-side rollover. Not that we're using it as the be-all and end-all of, well, this footage may make or break the case and show whether Noah was dead or not. I mean, at the end of the day, if there was video footage of the shower, would people be dumb enough to record it if Noah was dead and stood up like a hanging piece of meat as the girls held on to him whilst washing off evidence, whilst not wearing any gloves, still touching him whilst washing DNA off and more, whilst still applying their own DNA onto the body and then having to move it on after that and having to drag the body through the house and out the house whilst maybe dripping in blood whilst Kaden Pressy was in the house at the time. See, these rumours online, the way people have said, oh, yeah, Noah was dead during the side-by-side, and then he was taken into the house and washed down, hence the shower. And the footage, right, does exist from what witnesses have said that have seen it on Facebook in the early days temporarily, that Noah was noted, but in terms of how he stood, kind of leaning hunched just a little bit, maybe because of in a semi-conscious state, super drunk from what Kaden has interpreted, from what he's told Alicia and from what Alicia has told us. But what this seems to imply is if Kaden Pressy truly saw Noah being walked to the bathroom shower area, it's quite important, as in saying, well, at least at that point, and if we know the timestamp of the shower video, Noah was still alive. And maybe common sense or other people would say, well, duh, obviously, it's what happened after that point. It's what happened at 3:30. How even, well, no, not 2:40, we'll leave that one out. But yeah, 3:30 onwards, when Noah had walked away, Kaden Pressy hasn't acknowledged that, didn't witness that from what we're aware of. But also Kaden Pressy said he did not witness Noah having a shower. But on top of that, did not witness Noah coming out of the shower or the bathroom or going in to it in the first place, or even witnessing anyone escorting Noah to the bathroom to help him there. And yet Alicia, the way she words it, that's what Kaden saw. So for Kaden to say, I didn't see it, but for Alicia to say Kaden did see it when I asked him about it, who's right? Someone's telling the truth? Someone's probably lying? Or is it a mistake? How lenient do we get with it? Because it's pretty major whether the shower happened or not, and on top, whether Kaden Pressy saw it or not, because if Kaden saw Noah truly at least walking to the bathroom, somewhat still alive, maybe a bit drunk, at least it reinforces that Noah was still alive up to that point. So the side-by-side rollover and the cover-up there and the suspicion behind that isn't as suspicious. But the actual shower itself of disposing of the evidence and cleaning off the DNA and wiping off the writing isn't as suspicious as expected, compared to all the rumours and all the hype by certain pages on Facebook in the past, pushing it in erratic, poor language ways. Chinese whispers, turning rumours into facts, adjusting words of uncertainty into words of confidence, even though there might not be evidence to support it. That's a problem. Yeah, what we're seeing here by Alicia's doing at some point is kind of either unravelling Kaden Pressy to an extent, maybe more so unraveling and debunking the BS by other people indirectly on Facebook from these interpretations which I've looked at and measured, right? Just want to make sure I've not missed anything out. I mean, of course, there was a time when this particular piece of footage was deemed as suspicious. Oh, was it Brylan? This tense standoff and about, Isaac saying, this, I will kill you. But that's not what was said. It wasn't, I will kill you. It was, this will kill you. As in, maybe if you do a silly act, then it might go wrong. Isaac in the background holding a 12-gauge shotgun, which in the early days people interpreted, that's foreshadowing what was to happen to Noah, but that wasn't the case. Other people jumping as far as saying, look at the pocket there, that's not a pocket, that's a tear mark, that's a rip mark, so Noah's shorts were already damaged by then, which must mean the side-by-side already happened by then, but that's not the case. That's just a pocket. Granted, dirt on the back of the shorts, but if you was to fall over or sit down because of the ground being dry and dusty, that's how it can stick. If your body is a bit sweaty or clothing is a bit wet, then dirt can stick to it as well. Different means behind it, humidity. So, just make sure we've double checked everything here. We'll maybe apply it to the map as well, just to show you why it originally looked like these stories at least. Mad at a girl, but for what reason and who was he mad at and why exactly? And then going to take a shower. And then what? Then having another argument with a girl or the same girl with the bedroom situation? Maybe. Depends. It could be separate arguments with different people at different times. One before the shower, one after the shower, but before 3:30. And as for Noah being escorted by two girls, it seems somewhat consistent there, but for Kaden never to acknowledge it to us, but for Alicia to, in the background, acknowledge it, does make you start questioning. Kaden Pressy, from his point of view here, was Sunday night, but as he would be resting, if he had seen Noah walking by, that'd be through the front door, I think it's to the left when Kaden pans around, you do see the door or so there, so Kaden would have had a decent view of people coming in and out. So did he see anything else? Did he hear anything else? And for Noah to put shoes on, if Kaden's shoes are nearby to where he was sleeping or resting at around 3:30 onwards, we've seen Kaden in the police interview make a reference to how he went to sleep or tried going back to sleep at around 3:20 or 3:24, which is pretty close to the time of when Noah had walked away. Now, this argument happened before the shower. If that's not the bedroom debacle, then it can still mean that Noah had another argument with Avery after that, after the shower later. But was that before 3:20 or after 3:20? Bit of a tight time frame window. What did Kaden actually see? That's the question. And then the shower, as usual. And yeah, let's head on over to the maps right now. Take in mind what you're looking at here is an old project which I created in the past, so not all dates or more so times will be accurate, and I think it was more estimates at the time, okay, just as a heads up, but it does note some of the examples that happened. I mean, over this way, was there anything else of interest? September 4th, Noah's body found 5:46. It was 5:43 in the morning when the first Tyler H made the call, followed by Tyler Hardy at 5:53. The second call being Tyler Hardy, which was his first call, a failed call, did not work. 5:20, Kaden arrived. It was actually 5:21 and 5:30 when he left, told to leave. Jack, he passed away around 4 in the morning. That's the conversation with Jack and someone, maybe it was Justin or another person, but it was lacking context and did not show why Jack mentioned that time as an estimate. Likely could be interpreted because police told him that as an estimate and then Jack passed it on, but the screenshot didn't show it that way, unfortunately. 6:05, Jack showed up at the scene. Well, maybe. At least at 6:05, making a call to his father. Just catching up on some old news, that's pretty much there. White shorts folded near to the body. Originally, though, found middle of the road. Let's just focus on the details at hand. Quarry mine or so. 3:30, that really hasn't changed since. Kaden Pressy sleeps at 2 in the morning, wakes up at 2:42. That can be pretty much backed up by Alicia's call logs in regard to when woken up by the call, the phone ringing, 2:42. Back to sleep at 3 in the morning. Back to sleep at 3 in the morning? Well, we don't know about that, because in the police interview, different to parts in true crime, a month difference or so, Kaden originally said to police that he went to sleep around 3:20, not 3 in the morning. That 20-minute time difference is what could differentiate between what he actually saw and what he didn't see. The later it took for him to go back to sleep, the closer that time is to the time of other events occurring, such as maybe the shower, or even more so Noah walking away from the party, leaving, putting his shoes on, etc. And it could tie in with what Alicia was maybe getting at. Now, originally my estimate was 3 in the morning to 3:30 when the side-by-side happened, but it could well be earlier. And from what Kaden Pressy says, 2:40. Kind of hard to believe, because 2 minutes later, when Kaden was woken up by Alicia's call about Georgia being on the way home by them, is that Kaden said he saw Jack Newton, who was supposed to be asleep, was with Noah Presgrove and Jasmine near the beer pong table. So you'd think after the side-by-side rollover, at least, Noah would be going straight for a wash. And based off what Alicia has said, that when it came to the shower, Noah was escorted because he appeared to be drunk or semi-conscious, not quite able, not quite, to stand and walk himself. By himself, he needed assistance. So if you're saying the rollover occurred at 2:40, from what Kaden says, and 2 minutes later, Kaden, when woken up, saw Noah inside of the house, stood up fine with no one holding him. But yet Alicia's saying that, well, Kaden saw Noah with 2 girls being escorted to the bathroom and needing help. What does that say? Doesn't it? It's a bit odd. One thing counters another. Assisted shower, as I've put with a question mark, seems to be more so the case to some extent. We don't know the time publicly. Sleeping debacle as well. But you see the order of how it goes in. That's the important part besides the time. Side by side, you get dirty. You want to clean yourself down. Then you want to get comfy, put some different clothes on maybe or whatever, and then go to sleep. But doesn't quite work out, as we've heard, the supposed details. And when it's not worked or denied, that's when Noah supposedly calls out Avery. Now, if that's the argument where Noah is mad at a girl, is that what Alicia was referring to about it happening before the shower? But that wouldn't make sense in terms of the order of what we've got here. So one must be right, one must be wrong. Or Alicia is referring to a different event in which Kaden witnessed Noah being mad at a girl, but it was not to do with the sleeping arrangement at a later time. The next thing being Jack, Avery, or Logan last to see Noah walk off. And the reason why we say this, that person, or the other is because of how it's been worded by the different people with time. 3:41. Oh yeah, that's the other event, what we've not seen much of since. See, some things do get forgotten about. 3:41 in the morning onwards. After that point, Avery, Combs, Carter Combs arguing outside on the front porchway. What's that all about? Was it a rumour? Was it true? Either Justin, Roy, or Kaden acknowledged it in Partners in True Crime interview. I do remember. Quite important and interesting, but we never really saw many details. And then the 5:15. So the order of the events do not match up with the way Alicia has described them, or at least how you can interpret how she's described them, which is a bit odd. At the end of the day, what's been said here at some point by Alicia, because it wasn't a public post or a public comment, kind of implies there's probably a level of importance, you could say, amongst information passed about. Of course, once again, it shows that Alicia kind of has been screwed over by others who have revealed this public, but at the same time, it's very interesting to see the stuff, of public interest in a way, because we wouldn't know of it any other way, any other time. And with the cracks forming along the way, it's just not looking good, because it's one mistake after another, or one inconsistency, one discrepancy after another, or one lie after the other. In terms of what Alicia has said here, at least what we've covered today, does it make Kaden look more innocent or less innocent? It actually, it doesn't do him any favours. It actually makes things worse. Now, is that down to Alicia miswording it, misunderstanding it, adding extra details for some unknown reason? Who knows? But the fact that what's been said by Alicia here, based off what Kaden's told her, Kaden has not mentioned this in his interviews nor publicly anywhere. So why would that be hidden? Why would Kaden other times play dumb or just say, I didn't see it, I saw nothing, it never happened? We've got to be somewhat lenient and say, with what Alicia had said, no names were really mentioned and no times were really mentioned. So does that mean it's in the early stages? But can't be that early, because you would think that before the social media, the groups and the pages which were created at a later point in time, in the early days when memories were more refreshed and better and stronger, that these particular comments would have come at a later point online. And the real discussions of what was known earlier with the internal face-to-face communication, because we've got to balance it out in some way. From what Kaden Pressy remembers and from what Kaden has told Alicia, and then Alicia has taken notes or interpreted it herself and tried remembering it and then passing it on to people online, public or private, on behalf of Kaden. Sometimes when you act as a representative, speaking on behalf of someone, how you word or address it may differ to how the original person would deliver it. And that can have major implications if the wrong language and wording is used. If you use an exaggerative tone compared to what really did happen, you're hyping it up in an unnatural way. Or maybe you underestimate, you play it down. Manipulative minimization, you could call it. So there's that, internal or external. In fairness, though, you look to more so Sarah Long or Stevie Howard when communicating and close friends, not by blood, but close friends with Jack Newton. And Jack Newton has said what he said, or at least two people internally and privately, to the likes of Stevie, Sarah, who've listened in. And then Stevie, Sarah Long have spoken online, done their post and comments, acting as representatives of Jack. But in terms of how they deliver stuff and word it, it's, well, I think he said this and I think he said that. And from what was supposedly said, and there's a lot of uncertainty. It didn't sound confident. It didn't sound strong enough. And maybe other times how it was worded, it just wasn't from the horse's mouth. So how you interpret it could be interpreted in a weak way or could be interpreted in a dodgy way, depends how you look at it. So it's good to hear it from the horse's mouth, because when a representative speaks on behalf of you, it's not going to convey the same message, tone or emotions, is it? You might get some exceptions, of course, and if you had like a translator, but when you've got a translator, that's in the moment of when the actual witness is present and you're there to do your job and translate exactly what they're saying word for word to whoever is about. In these situations, though, is people going out of their way when the other original person isn't present and then posting a lot online in some way. And it's just not gone down very well, I'll be honest with you. I said it's not all about Kaden, it's not all about Alicia. There's been other party goers and other family of family, friends of friends that have spoken on behalf of party goers in which the communication has sounded a bit unusual, or the wording, and it's been a bit confusing. But I've already acknowledged that in my previous videos. I've already highlighted the suspicions there. Now I'm doing it from a different perspective, and unfortunately it's just constant wave after wave of cracks and information not quite tying up. Like what Kaden says doesn't quite gel with what Alicia says. What Alicia says doesn't gel with what Kaden says. One of the biggest examples was Kaden saying, more so in recent time, police didn't want my phone, and Alicia says, from Parts in True Crime, the never released interview, the police took Kaden's phone, got it analysed, and it proves that the timeline's correct. Why would Alicia say that when Kaden, in ownership of his own phone, said the police never took it? What's the point behind all that? It's just weird. And I guess the only other thing to acknowledge, because it's only brief, Justin Roy weighed in on his thoughts, more so on Facebook, I believe, to do with his reaction with my coverage on Kaden Pressy and Alicia. More so, I think it was Alicia speaking on behalf of Kaden another time, to do with, which I covered last night or the night before, where Justin Roy shared his thoughts on Facebook as in, so what? What's the big deal? It's not that bad. That's a bit unusual. I think we should acknowledge that just now so we don't forget. Here we are. As you can see, Justin Roy says on whatever page it was. So that means that Kaden's 5:15 timeline is still correct. Maybe Mikey Lee just didn't go to the highway, but Isaac Rojas and Brylan Sweat were with Kaden at the highway. Maybe Mikey Lee stayed back to take pictures with the girls. But if that's true, why take a picture all happy and smiling in bed after finding out Noah was dead? Exactly. Hopefully soon we will see the truth of which timeline is correct. I think it's odd none of the other kids have dropped their phone data to prove Kaden Pressy is wrong. Why don't all the other partygoers show their phone records to prove Kaden Pressy is wrong? Is there a level of entitlement there? You could put that argument across, because there is one important thing to acknowledge, and it does come down to the levels of activity and who's the most boisterous, who's the loudest in these cases, and what they say or what they wish for or how they counter people. We'll get that to in a second. But, for Justin's first response to it all, which showed Alicia digging Kaden into a deeper hole and making it seem more uncertain and dodgy and hard to believe and makes people question and double think. And for Justin to say, well, regardless of all that, Kaden's timeline's still correct then. But to interpret it as, well, maybe Mikey just didn't go. Why wouldn't Mikey go? Because he was that disturbed? I would understand that if he was that upset and with the PTSD in the past. But regardless, if Kaden Pressy is the one most people look up to, and maybe at one point Justin Roy did to some extent as well and defend him, that it's kind of like Justin is siding with Kaden Pressy, but at the same time still trying to side with his own thoughts, so he still remains right, as in suspicious stuff going on, but Kaden's still innocent. But either you support Kaden or you don't really, because in terms of how Kaden is supposedly Mr. Consistent on some stuff like the 5:15 timeline and who was present at the highway, either Mikey was there or he wasn't. Kaden says he was. Alicia does not acknowledge it, but interprets, based off her wording, as two boys were with Kaden at highway. It means the third one was not present, and that's likely Mikey based off the timing and the snap at the time of when Kaden was at the highway, but did claim Mikey was there too with him, but Mikey was actually at the house. Justin is kind of acknowledging that, okay, well yeah, the snap may be true. But this is where it gets very interesting, because there was such resistance in the past, wasn't there? Oh, that snap. And I'm talking in general by people. That snap of Mikey is wrong. It's been altered with. It's fake. It's been done to suit a certain agenda from the dark side. And, oh, wait, now we're actually possibly considering that it's true and there's a possibility behind it. Of course, Justin still questions, though, if that really was the case in terms of the body language and behaviour. It's a bit odd. But to be honest, there's a lot of other odd things in this case, right? I'm just going to respond back to the last part of what Justin was getting at in terms of, if Kaden Pressy is so wrong, then why don't the party goers that go against Kaden or not agree with him back it up with their proof to say, look, here's the real reality. Here's why 5:15 is incorrect. Here's why 6 in the morning onwards is more true, and that's the true time of when Kaden was actually there. I can understand what Justin is getting at. If you're passionate, if you've got evidence, why not back it up? Well, there's two factors to acknowledge. One being, can it actually be revealed publicly, this phone data of other party goers, of other possible people of interest? Can they be releasing that public, or maybe not? Could that be the same reason as to why Kaden can't be shown it public, or why Alicia doesn't want it showing publicly, and why it has not been shown publicly after all this time? So if Kaden can't show it, he can say it with his words, but you can't show it visually, and despite promise after promise, it not following through, well then, can't we follow with the same attitude there with why other partygoers aren't willing to show it publicly to counter Kaden? Because Kaden isn't willing to show his hard evidence, even if it's incorrect or true. Can't show it publicly, so why should opposition follow through? Why should one show it and then the other one doesn't show it? I know Justin's mentality is, well, if Kaden Pressy's interviews are public, then why aren't the other people's interviews public? Pretty simple. Other people's interviews with police were done privately, may have not been recorded by the person being interviewed, the partygoer, or maybe it was just handled better. Differences with Kaden Pressy is, whilst he recorded it himself, and whilst it may have been put into a drop box, the way supposedly Alicia handled it and shared it with people, which was somewhat reckless and amateur and possibly unprofessional in a sense, it put Kaden Pressy into a hole. Kaden was out of control of those factors. He couldn't do anything about it. Alicia had taken it upon herself to share it here or there in private confidentiality, but it backfired. If Alicia never shared it with anyone in private, and it was only given to the attorney or to the authorities, whatever, it wouldn't have been leaked. And by some, how they used to word it, hacked. That stuff would never have happened, and we would never have known of Kaden Pressy and those additional discrepancies. We would never be where we are now. So Kaden Pressy would never have been as questioned as much. Is where it is. But because of how poorly it was handled, the drop box, that's why it was leaked, fell into the wrong hands. So for Justin to say the others' interviews need to be released, basically Justin Roy indirectly, without putting words into his mouth, but based off interpretation, is Justin wants everybody else's partygoers' interviews to be leaked or hacked the same way Kaden Pressy's was. So based off that mentality, what Justin is getting at is, in Kaden Pressy's situation with his timeline, not actually physically showing it as hard evidence to the public, but Justin has that entitlement that believes that other partygoers should go out of their way and publicly reveal their side just to prove Kaden is wrong. But as said, the factor being are the legal reasons as to why they can't share it to the public. Do they have to restrain themselves that despite what Kaden says online with words, that these other partygoers cannot speak out or cannot go all in and say, well, no, here's the counter evidence, because it might harm the case or it might ruin it for them? Maybe. They can't say certain things, just like how other people may not be able to say certain things publicly. Justin doesn't seem to acknowledge that or think about that. The second factor. This is the most important factor, and I need people to listen right here, right now, and specifically Justin Roy. You need to ask yourself, who are the most vocal people when it comes to those that discredit, discount, and go against Kaden's timeline? Those that say Kaden is wrong, or a liar, or he's making mistakes, or he's getting confused, and maybe it's the trauma speaking as why his recollections are earlier when it was actually later on in the day when things actually happened and went from there. I would arguably say the most vocal people who have gone against Kaden are members of the general public and people who may be connected to the partygoers by blood or friendship. One thing that's all in common amongst the general public and friends of friends and family members, by blood or not, is that they weren't at the party. So Justin, when you refer to the most vocal people that demand for Kaden to do this and that, and also preach and say he's wrong and his timeline of 5:15 is incorrect, when you, Justin, say, well, you know, if you're so vocal and passionate, then prove it, show your counter evidence. How do you expect members of the general public, people who were never at the party, to show their phone data? Really? It's like asking a fisherman to describe what the latest harvest was on a farmyard. How's that possible? One's in the ocean, another person elsewhere is on ground where it's really dry. You know, the task of describing it is almost as impossible as getting Joyce Burgow in the lake to go fishing to try and find the Titanic and some soggy dog food. Are you likely to come across it? Maybe not. You're going to require Scooby-Doo and the Mystery Clue crew to find it? No, that'll probably won't work either. So I think that's what happens. This is a perfect, example and demonstration. We need more moments like this. We really need more moments like this where Justin pounces on in, or anyone, bold, passionate, because passion is considered good. But I can see the negatives in passion, in regard to certain events at least. Because if you're passionate, you might overstep your emotions, judgment, blinded by it, to be honest. So for Justin to say and call out people that say Kaden's wrong, well then why don't you back it up and show your phone data to prove that Kaden is wrong? Well, how many party goers are publicly, relentlessly calling out Kaden? Who? The people that have been somewhat critical, or at least pointing out Kaden is wrong, could be the likes of Brooke Bounds-Carter. Was Brooke Bounds-Carter at the party? No. Should she show her phone data to prove that Kaden's wrong and she's right? Not possible. She wasn't at the party. Sarah Long, Stevie Howard. They have said Kaden's wrong. Were they at the party? No. So how can they back things up? They can't. Renee Milan with certain stuff. Maybe not as hard on, to be honest, there. It was more so to do with, maybe that's the exception. Let me just acknowledge this. Renee Milan, when it comes to what time she showed up at the house at 7 in the morning or around about, but Kaden says it was 6:30. And people are saying, well, Kaden's wrong, Renee's correct. And when the general public say that, well, the general public can't back it up, can they? Because they weren't there. But if Renee Milan says, well, Kaden's wrong, I'm right, well, Renee, in that situation, needs to back it up with hard evidence then, if possible. It never happened. But she said, when giving an estimate as to when things happened or came about, or when Jasmine contacted me about Noah's death and what happened, what was it? Was it like 5:45 to 6 in the morning or so? But it was an estimate. But Renee did say, I'll have to look into my phone data to check for hard evidence, the real timing. It just didn't happen. So that's where Justin Roy's could apply, well, if you know you're right and Kaden's wrong, then back it up with evidence, data, do it. Yeah, I get that. But in terms of the 5:15 timeline, the most vocal, critical people for the right reasons, or at times for the right reasons, are more so members of the general public. More so, the most vocal people that have gone against or questioned Kaden are people that actually weren't at the party. So Justin, how do you expect people like that to whip out the phone and say, here's my data, if they weren't actually there? Oh no. Because of course you've got Jack Newton, you've got Jasmine Milan, you've got Carter Combs, Avery Howard, Mikey Lair, Brian Sweat, Isaac Rojas, etc. People like that will have their phone data. People like that, in Justin's mind, should be sharing or showing it public. But isn't there a level of entitlement there? Especially if people like those names mentioned by me, party goers, actual party goers, weren't that vocal in the first place, at least publicly. Kind of like the equivalent of if you got someone that reaches out to the general public, like a case, for help, and you get that help, you get that support, you asked for it, and then later, you push people away and say, I don't need you anymore, I don't want you anymore. The general public have the right to be a little bit outraged or a bit, frustrated or feel disrespected by it. if you're in a situation where you never reached out, you never asked for anything in the first place, then you don't owe anyone anything after that point, right? Okay, there could be some exceptions along the way, but, if you don't do anything in the first place, you don't ask for anything, you don't interact, nothing, keep to yourself. And then if anyone demanded stuff from you and had the cheat, well, they're in no position. It's just entitlement there. In terms of party goers, I don't know if I can name all of them, but surely there are party goers that may believe Kaden is wrong, but they've not publicly spoken about it, or they've not been that vocal about it. So then why should they have to show anything just to make Justin happy? That's a level of entitlement there. If there are party goers that have been very vocal online, publicly, constantly saying, Kaden, you're wrong, well then a party goer like that could possibly show something, but legally, are they in a position to do so? There is that too. So, yeah, in some ways, the biggest talkers aren't always the party goers, it's those connected to the party goers or general public, which is understandable. But you can't expect from that the biggest talkers to reveal all the information when they weren't actually there. But I don't think Justin can see that, because his passion is blinding his common sense. But there we go. Hopefully that makes sense, and everything else in between. If you want to share the video and hit the thumbs up, that'll be much appreciated. If you want to catch up on recent coverage, the full playlist, top right where the eye symbol is. Oops, sorry, I gave the middle finger then. Top right. If you want to support the channel, down below, PayPal link down there. That's it for now. I'll see you next time. Goodbye.